Recording in progress.
Our speaker tonight is a good friend, a scholar, and a great speaker, Dr. Edward Price. He will be speaking about a Baha'i perspective on interfaith relations. Edward Price is a former atheist from a Jewish background who became a Baha'i 50 years ago. He said his age there. I don't know. I'm just relying on his email. He has a bachelor's degree in psychology and religious studies, a master's degree in curriculum and instruction, and a doctoral level training in the field of instructional systems design. Edward was the co-writer and producer of the award-winning film The Gate. We all know that. Thank you. Dawn of the Baha'i Faith, and has lectures on various topics related to the Baha'i Faith at diverse venues, such as the Parliament of the World's Religions. Edward is currently engaged in writing the Divine Curriculum series of books. Thank you for accepting to be here with us tonight, and please go ahead.
Well, it's wonderful to be here, Ferouz, and thank you so much. I've been looking forward to doing this presentation because in recent weeks and months, I've been thinking about the subject of interfaith relations. And so let me start quickly, get a little technical thing out of the way. Let me go ahead and share my screen so that everybody can see what I'm looking at. There we go. I hope everybody can see that. Is that all right? Okay. So I'm going to move this a little out of the way, like that. Okay. So I've been thinking about this subject of a Baha'i framework for international interfaith relations for a little while now. It overlaps greatly with my subject area that I work on, which is the divine curriculum. That's the terminology I use for the Baha'i teachings about the progressive revelation. But I also, in addition to relying on the Baha'i sacred writings, I refer to the writings of the Old Testament, the New Testament, the Quran, other scriptures, so that ultimately the prophets of God, the divine educators, they speak with one voice. Anyway, so let's begin. Get my computer to proceed forward. There we go. So this is the standard copyright message. There is copyrightable material here. So this is the obligatory copyright page. Let's keep going. All right. So as was mentioned, I'm the author of the Divine Curriculum series of books. These are the books that are out so far, and there will in the future be books on Abraham and Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, and then eventually Baha'u'llah. And just one tiny little plug, these books are available on Amazon, and they'll very soon be available at my website, divinecurriculum.com. And there's a reference to my role in the film The Gate. And for anyone that's interested, there's a link for where you can go see the film on YouTube. And if you don't have time to copy the link, you can just do a Google search and The Gate, Dawn of the Baha'i Faith. The movie will come right up and you click on the one that says full version. Also, here's my contact information. I'm going to show it to everyone at the end of the presentation. And I want you to feel free to reach out to me if you want to ask a question, if you want to argue a point, if you want to contribute a thought that I didn't think of or anything at all. I would love to hear from you and talk with each of you if you want to reach out to me. So I write on the theme of the divine curriculum, and the main idea of this is that there's one God. He created the universe to be like a school, and the motto or the underlying theme of the book is all of creation is a classroom. Um, Today, my focus is on the Baha'i viewpoint towards interfaith relations, and I want to make very clear everything I say tonight, except for the direct quotations from the Baha'i writings, express my own understanding, and any flaws or errors that are made are my own. Okay, so place to begin for me is asking what is a Baha'i framework for interfaith relations, and is it theology or is it practice? And I suggest that it is actually both. It is a practice guided by the theology that we have in the faith. The aims of such a practice and theology are identical with the faith itself, which is to reveal the divine truth for our age, quicken the life of humanity spiritually, and uniting all the peoples of the world, ultimately leading to a wonderful, beautiful, global divine civilization, which will come about in the future. So within that intention, the framework on interfaith relations would aim to contribute uh, to those goals through the improvement of interfaith relations. So achieving this larger aim will entail certain strategic objectives. And I found a wonderful expression from Shoghi Effendi, where he describes some of these strategic aims. He speaks of the reorientation of the minds of men, the edification of our souls, and the rectification of our conduct. So now, eventually, since we're talking about interfaith, uh, certainly these ideas, these strategic aims would be applied to Baha'i individuals, communities, and institutions. But equally important over time, this orientation would be outward looking, and it would include all of the sister faiths of the world. So when I started to think about a framework for interfaith relations, I began to think about the way the World Governing Council of the Baha'i Faith, the Universal House of Justice, speaks to the Baha'i world about the plans that are set forth uh, in their letters. And for those who are not familiar with the writings of the House of Justice or the numerous plans that they share with the Baha'is of the world, the lines of action that are given fall into three main categories. First category is expansion and consolidation, that includes teaching the faith and community building. The second line of action is public discourse, and the third one is social action. And as I reflected on these three lines of action, for the purposes of tonight's discussion, I'm giving them a slightly different name, but they refer to the same things. I'm calling it behavior, theology, and realm of action. So here's one particular quote from the Universal House of Justice that struck me as very, very important. Today, the Pi community is distinguished by a mode of operation characterized by study, consultation, action, and reflection. It is steadily increasing its capacity to apply the teachings in a variety of social spaces and to collaborate with those in the wider society who share a yearning to revitalize the material and spiritual foundations of the social order. And the transformative alembic of these spaces, to the extent possible, individuals and communities become protagonists of their own development, and the capacity for learning is developed and directed towards personal and social transformation. This process will increasingly inform the work of every institution, community, and individual in the years ahead. So did you notice that key phrase that transformation includes empowering people to become protagonists of their own development? This is very, very important. So any approach to interfaith relations would not be some autocratic, totalitarian, top-down sort of a thing. It is something that encourages individuals, communities, institutions, even populations to become the protagonists of their own development. So that is how we're going to approach a discussion of interfaith relations. By the word alembic in the previous quote was unknown to me at first, so I looked it up. And the word alembic is a noun, and it refers to a vessel used in distilling that transforms, purifies, or refines. So here's a fair warning screen. I have a lot of quotes and bullet points here, and I'm going to go through them quickly. So if you want the quotes, I think that's fantastic. The presentation will be available afterwards. I'll provide it to Fairuz, and we can make the link available to everyone who has, attended tonight's program. So you don't have to work really hard to write everything down because the PowerPoint presentation will be made available to everyone later. So don't worry. Okay, so the first one is behavior. The first category that we're going to look at tonight is behavior. And that's analogous to the expansion and consolidation. So we begin this discussion by thinking about the purpose of religion in the first place, why we have religion at all in our world. And here are two quotes from Baha'u'llah. O ye children of men, the fundamental purpose animating the faith of God and his religion is to safeguard the interests and promote the unity of the human race, and to foster the spirit of love and fellowship amongst men. Suffer it not to become a source of dissension and discord, of hate and enmity. This is the straight path, the fixed and the immovable foundation. And the next quote, the purpose of religion as revealed from the heaven of God's holy will is to establish unity and concord amongst the peoples of the world. Make it not the cause of dissension and strife. And another, the central purpose of the divine religions is the establishment of peace and unity amongst mankind. The divine manifestations were founders of the means of fellowship and love. They did not come to create discord, strife, and hatred in the world. The religion of God is the cause of love, but if it is made to be the source of enmity and bloodshed, surely its absence is preferable to its existence, for then it becomes satanic, detrimental, and an obstacle to the human world. So this is the first quote that we've looked at where Abdul-Baha, this quote is from Abdul-Baha, the son of the founder of the faith. This is the first quote we've encountered where Abdul-Baha actually describes situation in which it is better to be without religion altogether. And that's if it's causing disharmony and strife and hatred in the world. So that's really a very profound assertion. And he doesn't just say it one time, he says it repeatedly. So here are two more quotes from Abdul-Baha. Religion is a mighty stronghold, but that it must engender love, not malevolence and hate. Should it lead to malice, spite, and hate, it is of no value at all, for religion is a remedy. And if the remedy bring on disease, then put it aside. Doctors of religion were instituted to bring spiritual healing to the peoples and to be the cause of unity among the nations. If they become the cause of division, they had better not exist. A remedy is given to cure a disease, but if it only succeeds in aggravating the complaint, it is better to leave it alone. If religion is only to be a cause of disunion, it had better not exist. And I think here's the final quote I have for you on this theme. This is from Abdul Baha. Baha'u'llah has said, if religion and faith are the causes of enmity and sedition, it is far better to be non-religious. And the absence of religion would be preferable, for we desire religion to be the cause of amity and fellowship. If enmity and hatred exist, irreligion is preferable. Therefore, the removal of this dissension has been specialized in Baha'u'llah, for religion is the divine remedy for human antagonism and discord. But when we make the remedy the cause of the disease, it would be better to be without the remedy. So here you have it, some very powerful quotes where the founder of a religion and the leader of a religion is actually setting forth a set of conditions in which it's better to be without religion. So just as a side note, in my days when I was much younger and I was an atheist, this is precisely one of the complaints that I raised against religion, that religion was the cause of so much strife and bloodshed and harm. And so why would I be interested in such a thing? And so later on, I encountered these quotes from the Baha'i faith telling me that my thinking when I was an atheist was not wrong. And so this is something very profound that we should take into account. Anybody who wants to pay any attention at all to the role of religion in the world. Okay, so we must be truthful and honest with one another. Yes, religion has brought a lot of good in the world, but it has also brought a lot of bad. The history of interfaith relations for many centuries has been inflicted with condemnations, divisions, hostilities, polemics, strife, and the suffering of multitudes, both as individuals and as groups. So it's quite clear none of this bad behavior is acceptable to the founders. So for interfaith relations to serve the wishes of the founders, starting now, this behavior should change. And there are some very interesting quotes that tell us that the bad behavior that we've seen throughout history actually negates any spiritual good attained from our belief. So here's this wonderful quote from the book of James. What doth it profit, my brethren, though a man say he hath faith and have not works? Can faith save him? Even so, faith, if it hath not works, is dead. For as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead also. So that's a pretty powerful quote from the Bible, the New Testament. And there was an interesting story from the Bab that took place when he was on his way to pilgrimage. He was on a boat for a lengthy period of time going around the Arabian Peninsula to get to Mecca in the 1800s. And he was appalled as he watched the behavior of the pilgrims as they were on the way to the holiest place in Islam to pay homage to God as they understood him. And they were just incredibly nasty to one another on the boat. And so the Bab wrote this about that occasion. Guard yourselves that ye may not in any way be the cause of sadness to another soul. I have observed on the way to Mecca acts which in the sight of God are the vilest kind, sufficient to undo the good that results from the act of pilgrimage. So these people, and the Bab was in their company for a period of time, they were on their way to do holy pilgrimage, but their behavior was so awful as far as his judgment was concerned that it actually was sufficient to undo the good of their entire journey on pilgrimage. So this is something that is very powerful that we should all take into account. If any of us want to participate in the religious arena, we have to make sure that our behavior is in accord with standards set forth for us in our religions, or else it's better not to do it if it's causing harm and sadness and division among peoples. Okay. So actually, there are hundreds of passages that make this principle clear. I've it might seem like I've given you a lot of quotes here, but in fact, it's just the tiniest little drop from the ocean of the passages that inform us on this topic. So, but it's clear from what we've covered so far that in interfaith relationships, and in fact, in all of our relationships, we must prioritize being good over being right. Prioritizing being good over being right. Now, everybody wants to be right. That's fine. We love being right. It's okay to be right. Yes, it's fine. But if you're a really bad person while you're being right, that's not so good. So we have to reset our priorities so that we're prioritizing being good over being right. And here's this loving and wonderful passage from the writings of the Bab, where he's talking about two people who are having a dispute over some matter in their religion. He doesn't say what they're talking about. It doesn't really matter. And so these two would dispute, he says. This one saith, thou art an extremist. The other one saith, thou art intolerant. This one adduceth evidence from a word of God, and that one reasoneth by another word of God. Does any of this sound familiar to people in our discussions in the world today about religion? Anyway, back to the quote. But I affirm unto them, ye are both true and right, on the condition that thou not say unto him, he is an extremist, and he not say unto thee, thou art intolerant. For he too is a creation of thy Lord. God loveth him, and he loveth God. Isn't that fascinating? Okay, so as I mentioned, there are literally hundreds of quotes, and this presentation would become impossible in length if I tried to give you every quote. So from here, I'm going to just give you bullet points really quickly. And let me assure you, for each bullet point, there's a quote somewhere that I was remembering from the sacred writings. So I'm going to go through this quickly, but let me remind you again that this presentation will be available afterwards, and so you can have access to these bullet points too. Okay, so here we go. These are guidelines for good behavior. Treating others with loving respect. Everyone is from God, whether they think so or not. Every believer must promote and teach the faith. It's okay to recruit others to the faith with enthusiasm, energy, and dedication, but with boundaries of civility and receptivity. Go ahead, assert your truth claims fearlessly. Everyone can do this. So let others do the same. Set forth arguments, conclusive and divine. Encourage asking questions. Investigate truth for yourself. Adapt your presentation to the capacity and receptivity of your audience. Speak only when you have a listening audience. Receptivity is a key to discussion. Appreciate diversity of viewpoints. Maintain an open mind and an attitude of a learner. Elevate others when you can. In fact, this is a responsibility that we have towards one another. Acknowledge the merits of an opponent's argument. Attract people to the cause of God through love. See each other as mirrors reflecting the light of God, becoming true brethren. Overcoming estrangement, aim to be a unifying force, for only then can the word of God take effect. Seeking win-win outcomes where everyone benefits. Practicing humility, practice forgiveness, be of service to others. Truthfulness is the foundation of virtue. Bring joy, not sorrow. But if you can't bring joy, then at least don't cause sorrow. Consort with the followers of all faiths, indeed all peoples, calling upon religious leaders and all peoples to promote the common good, especially to promote unity. Living and let live with your way of interacting with people. It's okay to disagree. Disagreements are inevitable, but do so agreeably. Being right is not as important as being good. And it's okay to rationally and peacefully offer critique to other people, their ideas. Okay, so that's quite a list of criteria for positive behavior. Let's take a quick look at some guidelines concerning the bad behavior. As we saw from earlier, bad behavior can actually be a negation of one's faith. Living faith is not reflected in bad deeds, only good deeds. Practice should live up to one's beliefs. Do not dispute, fight, struggle, bring sorrow, bring strife, introduce division, cause estrangement, or engage in othering. Love and unity come hard when you fix your gaze on othering, Abdu'l-Baha said. And this next one is extremely important. No claiming of superiority, not even if objectively one might be superior. Rather, practice humility. When engaging with interfaith relations, there should be no place for attitudes like my guy is better than your guy, or I know, but you do not. Even if you do know, we don't talk to each other like that. Practice civility. Some of this is really obvious. No prejudice, no blind imitation, no backbiting, gossip, or malicious fault finding, no disputing over scripture. When two argue over scripture, both are wrong. Do not belittle, disparage, whittle down, or disrespect other faiths, especially their founders. Don't belittle the thoughts of others. Disagree respectfully if you must. Do not impose your beliefs or practices on others. No force or coercion. No proselytizing, but proselytizing is a word that is quite often misunderstood. It doesn't mean you don't teach the faith. It means you don't interact with people either through threats or inducements to manipulate them to follow along with what you're saying. So anyway, now if someone is unreceptive, do not continue. Leave him to himself and to God. Walk away. The Bab said the path to guidance is not through force and coercion, rather through love and compassion. And of course, seems pretty obvious actually, but there shouldn't be any judgmentalism towards others or their faiths. Indeed, if you have a negative opinion, you're not actually obligated to tell somebody. You don't have to do it. You don't have to give your negative judgment. You can and probably should keep your judgy attitudes to yourself sometimes. Right? Okay. So those are guidelines for behavior. that should set the framework for anything that we do in the interfaith arena. And in fact, life in general, actually. So let's now look at the second category, which is public discourse or theology. So why the divine educators? So strong monotheism or mature monotheism, which says there's no God but God. Humans are created noble, but with a need to be educated. So God sends us educators who all work for the same God. They're all teachers in the universal school of God, which is creation itself. All of creation is a classroom. And so who are the educators? The ones known to history are Krishna, Abraham, Moses, Zoroaster, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, the Bab, and Baha'u'llah. That was chronological. There are other names too out there as well. They are known as founders of religion, revealers of God's word, manifestations of God, or messengers of God. All of these terms are just fine. We can use any of these words. Now, the founders of the major religions were all sent from the same God. And the religions are sequential grades in one underlying revelation throughout the ages. Now, there have been divisions and distortions, but these have been caused by men. These are not caused by God himself. So here's an optimistic note about progressive revelation. Shoghi Effendi, who was the leader of the faith after Abdu'l-Baha passed away, Shoghi Effendi offered an enticing vision of the contribution that the teachings of progressive revelation offer to humanity. He's referring in this passage to the Book of Certitude. Anyway, he makes an astounding claim. Well, may it be claimed that of all the books revealed by the author of the Baha'i Revelation, this book alone, by sweeping away the age-long barriers. If you heard that, that's somebody ringing my doorbell, but I'm not going to get up. Anyway, this book alone, by sweeping away the age-long barriers that have so insurmountably separated the great religions of the world, has laid down a broad and unassailable foundation for the complete and permanent reconciliation of their followers. So does that sound like an interfaith comment to you? The reconciliation of the followers of the world's great religions? It sounds very interfaithy to me, so to speak. Okay, so we have the divine educators. They are on the timeline of history. They are sent to us at times and places of God's choosing. And they're spaced in history approximately every 500 to 1,000 years. And though history has formed different religions through them, in fact, they were all sent from the same God. They are all working for the same God. They are all promoting the same God. So think of the divine educators as cooperating members of one school faculty, the school of God, which is all of creation is a classroom. They're all working together. They're in harmony with one another. So here's the elements of the divine curriculum analogy. All of creation is a classroom. You see on the left, God, and the religion is on the left, and the school analogy is on the right. God is the owner of the school. All of creation is the school or the classroom. All human beings are the students. The divine educators are their teachers. The scriptures are the various textbooks, and the teachings that they contain are the curriculum. So one of the important things about progressive revelation framework is that, and this was alluded to earlier, superiority claims are not allowed. Baha'u'llah says this in a passage that I have here on the screen. Somebody wrote him a question and said, and he says, "Thou hast inquired which of the prophets of God should be regarded as superior to others. Know thou assuredly that the essence of all the prophets of God is one and the same. Their unity is absolute. To prefer one in honor to another, to exalt certain ones above the rest, is in no wise to be permitted. Every true prophet has regarded his message as fundamentally the same as the revelation of every other prophet gone before him." So, as this applies to interfaith relationships, no group is in a position, according to these guidelines, no group is in a position to claim that their prophet is superior to any other prophet. And oh, by the way, this applies to the Baha'is as well. We Baha'is, as much as we are devoted to and we have dedication to Baha'u'llah, who is our most recent messenger of God in the world today, we're not allowed either to place Baha'u'llah above any of the others. Every true prophet hath regarded his message as the same. The essence of the prophets is one and the same, he says here. And to raise one above the other is in no wise to be permitted. Is that clear enough, everybody? Does that kind of like set out for you what you kind of need to know? It's really very straight. You have to admit it. It's really very straightforward, isn't it? Okay, so
Yes.
I quoted from Shoghi Effendi when he talked about the power of the Book of Certitude to bring about unity and reconciliation. So actually, when you go into the Book of Certitude, Baha'u'llah's framework for discussing religion is based upon the concepts of unity and distinction. So here we go. The unity, the process begins with the absolute unity of God. And the discussion of unity is about the divine educators. They're all sent from the same God. They're all from one source. They're all on one mission. Spiritually, eternally, they're all the same with God. And yet on earth, there is distinction. Each founder addressed the particular needs of his age, came into the world with a specific mission to accomplish. Obviously, the religions are not the same. They do, in fact, differ from one another. There is both unity and there is distinction. Oneness predominates, but distinction is also manifest. If we go around and only talk about oneness and unity and never acknowledge the distinction, frankly, people are going to think that we don't know that much about the topic of religion, because it's obvious that there are distinctions as well as commonalities. So let's continue. Now, here's a bit of terminology that you need to know. This terminology appears in the Christian community, and the Baha'i faith makes use of this terminology as well. We have to understand the meaning of the word dispensation. It is defined as the time between the appearance of one divine educator and the appearance of the next one. So here's some examples. The period of time between Abraham and Moses is one dispensation. The period of time between Jesus and Muhammad would be another dispensation. And the dispensations come in succession because they're marked by the appearance of a manifestation of God at the beginning and ending of a dispensation. Does that all make sense? The meaning of the term dispensation is quite crucial for our understanding. So now, there are passages in the Bible and in other sources where the divine educator makes a claim to authority. Jesus, for example, in the Bible says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes unto the Father but by me. He says, Muhammad made claims about his authority in his time. Moses and Abraham, each in their turn. The Bab and Baha'u'llah, all of the messengers have said when they are performing their mission here in our world that they're in charge. They are representing the will of God in the world. So during or within a dispensation, each messenger of God or each manifestation of God is the supreme authority. His words and deeds are identical with the will of God. And if he makes an exclusivity claim during his dispensation, it applies to that dispensation and it's valid. Now, it's also true that after a dispensation or outside of a dispensation, his position as a lawgiver is superseded by the next one that was sent by God. So his station in heaven and his glory is not diminished in any way, it's not limited. However, his laws may be modified, abrogated, or replaced even by the newest manifestation of God. So we have, on the one hand, supreme authority within his dispensation, and we have the being able to be superseded after his dispensation. We have to understand these dual functions of the process of sending messengers one after another throughout history. Now, another aspect of this story is that there's an unbroken succession of divine educators. And one of the ways that they are linked with one another is through prophecy. So each divine educator is foretold by the earlier ones. Each one makes a covenant for the next one to come. When the next one comes, the covenant is fulfilled. And when he appears and fulfills the prophecy, each one of the divine educators foretells the next one in prophecy, and each one fulfills the prophecies of the earlier ones. So Abraham foretold the coming of Moses. Moses foretold the coming of Jesus. Muhammad foretold the coming of Baha'u'llah and the Bab. And that's kind of how it goes. However, problems ensue when the followers say, for example, that Jesus can supersede Moses, but no one can supersede Jesus. Or other followers say, that's my doorbell again, sorry about that. The other followers can say, for example, that Muhammad can supersede Jesus, but no one can come after Muhammad. So this is how problems begin, when the followers make these claims that are not actually justified by the sacred writings of their faiths. And so the inability to see religion as one whole continuous process has actually led to conflict, division, strife, bloodshed, wars, persecution. This conflict occurs because some followers have prioritized asserting the dominance of their truth claims over others. They are attempting to prioritize being right over being good. I'm not saying they are right. I'm saying that's how they see it. That's how they see themselves. So their sense of priorities from the perspective of what we learned earlier about the behavior that we need and the purpose of religion itself is inverted. They're prioritizing being right over being good. And this, in the name of their faith of all things, has created disunity instead of unity. This has been a tragic inversion of the moral imperatives set forth in the framework. So in 2002, the Universal House of Justice, which is the world governing body of the faith, wrote a very wonderful and amazing letter to the religious leaders of the world. And here is a short excerpt from it. We unequivocally urge renunciation of all those claims to exclusivity and finality And now look at what they say next, that have been the greatest single factor in suffocating impulses to unity and in promoting hatred and violence. So, taking inspiration from this quote, a Baha'i framework for interfaith relations would urge the renunciation of exclusivity claims, finality claims, and as I mentioned earlier on an earlier screen, also superiority claims and dominance claims. So another way that problems ensue is that when people are making their superiority claims, they have a desire to impose their views on others instead of following the standards of good behavior that we talked about earlier and following a live and let live philosophy. So these are struggles for dominance over time, over centuries. This has gone on. And it perpetuates cycles of disunity that go on endlessly. There's no end to it. So there's only one solution to this problem. And that is the only way out is to uninvert the priorities. Coming back to what we said earlier about behavior, we should strive to be good more than being right. Again, as we said earlier, it's fine to be right, but just not at the expense of being good. So we let those who are in error, at least as we see what error looks like, if what we imagine it to be, we let those in error go their own way. We give them love and fellowship instead. And here's the counsel of Baha'u'llah on this point. Beware lest ye contend with anyone. Nay, strive to make him aware of the truth with kindly manner and most convincing exhortation. So clearly, according to this guidance, it's just fine to go ahead and make your point and try to win somebody over to your point of view. It's just fine to do it. Strive to make him aware. But then Baha'u'llah goes on. He says, if your hearer respond, he will have responded to his own behoof. And if not, turn ye away from him and set your faces towards God's sacred court, the seat of resplendent holiness. By the way, years ago, I had to look up the word behoof in the dictionary, and it means basically to his own benefit. It means he's responded to his own benefit. So in the end, treating people with love will either attract them to the truth, whatever that might be, or it won't. But in the meantime, by subscribing to standards of good behavior, humanity would be spared the continued horrors of religious disunity. So we've alluded to this a little bit, according to the world's religions, all the people are reflections of the same light because there's only one God. So naturally, the light originates from one source. All things are united as recipients of God's light. The sun doesn't descend into the mirrors, it stays in its exalted heights, but the light of God shines in every individual. Humanity is one because we are all mirrors reflecting the same light from God. And here's this wonderful quote from the Bab, which amplifies this point beautifully. Become as true brethren in the one and indivisible religion of God, free from distinction. For verily God desireth that your hearts should become mirrors unto your brethren in the faith, so that ye find yourselves reflected in them and they in you. This is the true path of God the Almighty, and he is indeed watchful over your actions. So the Baha'i framework on interfaith relations, as I've explained, is both theory and practice. Everyone is allowed to fearlessly and freely assert their truth claims. Obviously, sometimes there will be disagreements. There's no need to ignore those disagreements Instead, we should honestly acknowledge them. And we can discuss freely, energetically, confidently as much as we like. But we must never allow such discussions to descend into disunity. So the formula for interfaith discourse is quite simple. We listen attentively. You state what you believe. It's okay to try to prove your points with arguments, conclusive and divine. We continue to listen to one another. We stay humble, gracious, loving. We prioritize good behavior over good doctrine, though good doctrine is fantastic as well. Conflict is forbidden. And if you can't avoid the conflict, for whatever reason, it may be you, it may be the other person, in the end, it doesn't matter. You stop discussing. Because when two people argue about scripture, both of them are wrong. So we acknowledge the truth claims of the various divine educators, while at the same time in our discourse, we'll seek to clarify misunderstandings and resolve differences among the followers through loving education, public discourse, and social action. Whether our viewpoints are accepted or not, our teachings in this framework prohibit dominance-seeking behavior and urge us to practice live and let live behavior in the event that differences are not resolved. So the formula is simple. First, do no harm. Then bring joy and elevate if you can. Okay, let's talk about the realm of action, which is social action. So we might envision interfaith relations as a continuum ranging from negative to positive. So way far on the negative side, which is the left side of my screen, we see one of the stages on this continuum might be ignorance, division, hostility, dislike, prejudice, intolerance, even attack. Soften that a little bit and you get separated, but people are living and let living. There are no attacks, but there's no respect either. Moving a little closer towards the positive. Okay, so now we actually have toleration. We're able to coexist in peace. No one is attacking anyone else. Now we're getting a little even more positive. Toleration, coexisting in peace. But now we're actually engaging in mutual appreciation of one another. And then the best place, the most positive place on the continuum is unity and reconciliation, cordial fellowship. We can even envision coming to one another's defense and aid as the most positive expression of interfaith relations. So the Baha'i framework might envision a continuum of interfaith relations of moving from negative to positive. The framework empowers the interfaith community to achieve the following outcomes and moving individuals and populations along the continuum. So the framework offers the universal recognition of the commonality of God, the universal recognition of the divine educators. Each religion has its necessary and significant place in the timeline of human history. And remember, these places in the timeline were at times and places of God's choosing. We humans had nothing to do with selecting when a certain messenger was going to appear or where he was going to appear. So each religion has its necessary and significant place in the timeline of human history. And the contribution of each religion to humanity overall is genuinely recognized and appreciated. So with these principles in mind, reconciliation among the faiths becomes a logical and possibly inevitable outcome. So what kinds of activities might we talk about? Well, some of this we're very familiar with already. Um, People from different religious backgrounds getting together for social events, having fellowship with an emphasis on positive and unifying behavior. We show up at each other's events and at large interfaith events like the Parliament of the World Religions, for example. There are other interfaith conferences that go on around the world as well. We could have cross-congregation education activities that are aimed at remediation of misunderstandings, indeed promoting mutual appreciation. Creating safe spaces for interfaith dialogue would be very useful. Combining together in community service and humanitarian activities, taking care of the poor, meeting the needs of the sick or the elderly or people who are suffering from one difficulty or another. In our different congregations, when sermons or lectures or presentations are given, we call our various congregations to unity instead of estrangement. And of course, giving financial or material support in times of need. So hypothetically, just imagine this scenario. Some really nasty person comes along and burns down a church or a mosque or a synagogue. Well, why wouldn't it be wonderful if the other religious communities in the region or wherever that are aware of this come together and help rebuild that house of worship? So it could be an interfaith activity when times of need like this come across. And really, perhaps what would be the most visionary of all is some future version of collective security where the different religious communities, each adhering to their own beliefs as they wish, pledging themselves to come together in one another's defense and mutual protection. So if there's hatred going on in your community towards the Muslim community because the Islam is being confused with militant jihadi terrorism or something, or if there's anti-Semitism going on in your region, why don't we have the religious communities themselves be the ones that speak up and come forth and clarify that these behaviors are not acceptable according to the religions? So we would actually have some version of collective security through the religious communities of the world. To me, this would be perhaps the highest fulfillment of interfaith relations. But all of this is wonderful if we would just all together as humanity, if we would do it. So we've arrived at our summary here, and thank you for your patience with being patient with me. So the Baha'i framework for interfaith relations would use all three strategies to create movement along the continuum towards the positive. We would utilize the behavior, the theology, and the realm of action, which you recall paralleled the three lines of action articulated by the Universal House of Justice: expansion, consolidation, public discourse, and social action. Anyway, so a Baha'i-inspired framework for interfaith relations would promote unity in the interfaith arena. It would enable unity to emerge from today's fractured and disunified state. And it would be one of the most important realms of service to humanity, promoting unity and harmony among all the religions and their followers. But here's what's really interesting. Doing all of that would actually just be a stepping stone for humanity towards even greater objectives aimed at the betterment of humanity as a whole. So I'm going to close with a quote from the Universal House of Justice. Again, that's the world governing body of the faith, from their letter to the world's religious leaders in 2002. And here we go. Inspired by this perspective, the Baha'i community has been a vigorous promoter of interfaith activities from the time of their inception. The members of our community will continue to assist in every way we can. We owe it to our partners in this common effort, however, to state clearly our conviction that interfaith discourse, if it is to contribute meaningfully to healing the ills that afflict a desperate humanity, must now address honestly and without further evasion the implications of the overarching truth that called the movement into being, that God is one, and that beyond all diversity of cultural expressions and human interpretation, religion is likewise one. With every day that passes, danger grows that the rising fires of religious prejudice will ignite a worldwide conflagration, the consequences of which are unthinkable. Such a danger civil government, unaided, cannot overcome. Nor should we delude ourselves that appeals for mutual tolerance alone can alone hope to extinguish animosities that claim to possess divine sanction. The crisis calls on religious leadership for a break with the past, as decisive as those that open the way for society to address equally corrosive prejudices of race, gender, and nation. Whatever justification exists for exercising influence in matters of conscience lies in serving the well-being of mankind. At this greatest turning point in the history of civilization, the demands of such service could not be more clear. The well-being of mankind, its peace and security are unattainable, Baha'u'llah urges, unless and until its unity is firmly established. Thank you very much. I appreciate your patience with my talk, and my contact information is here for you again. And I'll leave it up on the screen for a moment. And if you want to have a period of questions and answers, I hand the floor back to Farouz, and we can do that for a little while if you want.
What a great fireside, Edward. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Very good, very good. Beautiful.
You see, this is not me. This is others.
Yes.
Edward, thank you. I think it was worth it that I had to email you 350 emails, and at last you say yes. Thank you. You must know that I share these things when we are recorded, so next time you would agree to come quicker.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it's recorded. I appreciate that very much. And I must object, however, you're making it sound like I was playing hard to get. And
No,
that actually isn't the case.
that's right. That's right. You know, although Edward is both a scholar and an artist and all of that, but as soon as I wrote to him that I have COVID, I received emails from him as to how I deal with that and what kind of a supplement. And you see, we are all brothers and sisters and we all love each other. Thank you, Edward. That was what I meant.
My pleasure. And I hope your recovery continues and gets better.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Friends, the floor is open. If you would like to ask questions, please raise your hands. Yes. Okay. Please go ahead.
First of all, I would like to thank Sir Edward for that. and I'm sorry I was late. I just reached the second of the three topics, and I would just like, it's not a question, but a request that this should be printed and provided us.
I stated in the beginning of my talk, unfortunately, you missed that moment
I was
when I said that my PowerPoint slides will be made available, and there was an appropriate copyright message at the beginning, but the file will be made available for everyone to have.
Thank you.
Also, I just wanted to add that, excuse me, that the recording of this talk will be uploaded on the site Baha'is of Oakville. And usually every day I receive between 5 to 10 messages. People are asking how they can access that. Baha'is of Oakville, you're more than welcome to go there, and probably in the next few days, this talk will be uploaded as well. Josh Wilson, do you have any questions? Aniela? Mr. Liu Chi, I would like to welcome our friends from Malaysia. They just joined us a little later. Welcome to you all.
Sorry, really.
You're welcome.
I don't necessarily. It was very well put together, Ed. That was really, really good.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's really devastating that I should be good, not right. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be good. Be the best that you can be. That's not devastating, is it? You're probably pretty wonderful already, Anelia.
Just joking.
I know.
It
Okay,
was
good.
so important.
No one
Thank
is
you.
perfect.
Yeah.
God.
I found it particularly compelling when I was referring to the story of the Bab on his way to Mecca, when he was giving such concrete feedback about how the pilgrims on their way to the holy place for their religion were negating every good that they were doing because of their bad behavior. And that really spoke to me, like, OMG, we really have to get straight about this. Because we think we're serving religion, but in fact, we're mostly just serving our own egos instead. And we're causing harm rather than good.
That's something that we are doing every moment, with every breath, really refining our faith. Let deeds, not words, be your adorning. I had not heard that quote, so I'm so grateful for it. And what does it mean to be good over being right when, you know, we really feel so strongly about the oneness of religion, and we really feel so strongly that Zoroaster is who Zoroaster says he is. I just think our whole conversations with other souls will be not just elevated, but transmuted into the holiness that it deserves if we understand the goal is not to be right, but to have a safe space, to have made gains in safety, in trust, to make gains in love and joy. That's the win.
I agree 100%. You know, it's so interesting when I think of, you know, what does it take? And what comes to my mind is just straight up, we have to master our emotions. It's the mastery of our own impulses, the mastery of our own emotions. Because when, you know, you have a religious belief and it means everything to you, you would lay down your life to sustain that belief. You would never recant it or take one word away from it. You believe what you believe. And our Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, Hindu friends all over the world, and even the atheists, they feel exactly the same as we do on an interfaith perspective. They have their emotions and their strong commitments as well. But you have a right to express your view, and they have a right to express their view.
Yes,
We're
sir.
supposed to have fellowship with one another. So interreligious dialogue is absolutely inevitable. And of course, since they believe what they believe and you believe what you believe, disagreements are absolutely unavoidable. It's going to happen. So the question is, when you find yourself in that moment, what do you see? What do you feel? And if we see what the Bob says, which is to see and then the reflection of the light of God's revelation, then you don't see someone you want to hate. You see someone that you would say, all right, well, how can I be of service? Or what can I learn? How can they serve me? Either way, it's fine. And so, but you have these emotional commitments that mean so much to you. So this is why I feel that being able to acquire self-discipline and self-control and mastery of your own emotions so that our interfaith dialogues do not descend into disunity. And frankly, it's not limited to interfaith dialogues. It's virtually any kind of dialogue, whether it's politics or family finances or something going on in the community. These principles apply universally, actually. So when we have a strong point of view and then somebody else has a strong point of view, rather than descending into disorder and disunity, we should get a grip on ourselves. And then we should interact with that person through the perspective of love and fellowship. And if they agree, they agree. If they don't agree, they don't agree. And we're not attached to that outcome. We don't feel guilty if they didn't believe what we thought was going to save their soul. And we're not ashamed to stand up for the truths that we believe in either. So there's this walking this balance in your behavior. And frankly, it just comes with practice. It doesn't come instantly to any of us. But you practice, you make mistakes, you learn from your mistakes, and you go forward, always trying to elevate yourself and to elevate others along the way, be of service to others. And we could talk about that a long time, but I think the main point is when you find yourself in that moment of that discourse, to have self-mastery of your own emotions.
Thank you so much, Edward. I would want to read something from the chat, then I will ask Doc. He's been waiting for a long time.
Yes, I see at least 3. I'm looking forward to those questions too.
Dr. Alpert writes here, thank you so much for this well-structured talk with relevant quotes pointing us in direction of useful personal and social actions. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Inspiring. Doc, go ahead, please.
You're muted. There we go.
Hi. Good to hear you talk. Good to see you again.
Greetings, Doug.
I think when I was there in the summer, I was talking about my involvement in World Religion Day. And I know Baha'is used to support that a lot. And it was kind of a major interfaith thing when I first became a Baha'i.
Yes.
And in this area, we had 170 people at a World Religion Day event north of Oakville, because I live north of Oakville. I just thought you should know that it's still going strong.
Yay. That's fantastic.
Are U.S. Baha'is supporting any particular interfaith thing other than the parliament?
I think so, but I'm honestly not as fully informed about that as I should be. We do have the Office of External Affairs at the Baha'i National Center that one could contact for getting some information about that. Oh, by the way, in Lights of Guidance, I think it may not be Lights of Guidance, but it's compilation of compilations. There's a very fascinating quote from the Universal House of Justice on the topic of World Religion Day. So you might want to go look that up, and you can look up use the keyword happy thought. And I'm not going to give away the happy surprise, but there's a nice little quote there about World Religion Day that you'll find very interesting.
Right.
It's great to see you again, Doug.
Likewise.
Gary, welcome. We noticed that you were a little late because you weren't able to start with a prayer. We will jot it down on your account. Go ahead, please.
Hi, Gary.
Hello, no, I'm driving.
God.
That's what it was. I'm driving. Well, there were many great points that were raised, but one of the two walk away. Well, for me, it's religion is not an imposition on any other soul. It's shared. It's not an imposition, but too many times that's what it is to get that piece of sharing. It becomes imposing on another soul. So that's one of the places to start. And if it's this need that this urgency that you got to keep just spilling your heart out to someone, that's the first sign to pause, because you're attached to persuading someone or convincing someone into your space. We allow them. We're just planters. We're seed planters. We share, and that's it, with no attachment. That's the remedy. But we're so invested of making sure it's us that turns this next soul into a Baha'i or whatever the faith is that we're pushing, whatever, and it becomes something other than what it's meant to be. So if we just remember, we're sharing this word. They denied the prophets, the manifestations of God. When they walked this planet, they denied them. So who do we think we are?
Absolutely. You're very welcome. I'd like to add to what you said, which is the enthusiasm and the excitement that we feel about our religious commitments are totally valid. And it's perfectly wonderful to share our enthusiasm and to want to share it with other people. That's fantastic. We should stand our ground, and everybody should be able to state their truths as they understand them, but with the attitude of humility. And very, very important, we should always have our antenna up, so to speak, trying to gauge the receptivity of the person we're speaking with. And if the person is not receptive, that is when we need to let go. Say, okay, I'm not going to push this. I just shared what I had to say, and God bless you, and everything's fine. So gauging the receptivity is a key skill, so to speak, that we need to be developing as well. I love your comment. Thank you, Gary.
Jane, please.
Yes, I just put something in the comments. We had a huge interfaith group in Austin, Texas, and through it, I once served on a clergy council with 83 ministers. I was the only non-clergy, the only female, and Baha'i. But Austin has, it's very rich with interfaith work. And one of the stars that I adore through this group is named Jim Rigby. And I just put his post in the chat. And I love it because it's exactly what you're saying. It's about, he quotes Plato and Marcus Aurelius. That instead of arguing with people who are upset, we should first strive to return them to their former balance. So I put that in there.
Nice.
I don't know need to read it, but I just think it's brilliant. Expecting an emotionally upset person to be perfectly rational can be like expecting our car to run without gas.
Absolutely. And actually the neuroscience, the structure of the brain is when the human brain is firing on, shall we say, angry or negative emotions, it actually becomes impossible to think rationally. The brain simply cannot do it. It's in survival mode when it is in that emotional state. So you have to calm people down and attract them through love first and create a safe space for people to be able to share with one another and learn from one another and not take offense if something doesn't come out just right. And when the temperature has been lowered, only then really are we able to engage in rational conversation. It's very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Please go ahead, Daniela.
So sweet to indulge me. I always have something to say. But
Go for it.
Just moving along with what Jane was saying, in our study circle right now are longtime interfaith servants, and they are moving through the sequence of courses closer to Baha'u'llah's words, using the revelation in their own, the operation of their, not only their own souls, but of their, what they are contributing within their own paths towards God. And I find it fascinating. Receptivity is so high for interfaith communion. And so we're working on two fronts, not just those that show up to interfaith activities, which is really fascinating, but then our close friends that we can accompany, our neighbors that we can accompany, so that there's even more intimacy. But I am totally fascinated by this arena that we can maybe be a bit parched in our contribution. And that was just to answer Doug. It is in Austin prime real estate.
Fantastic.
And in Houston too, because some of the people from Austin moved to Houston. And another thing I notice is that the Baha'is tend to become chairperson of the boards. There's something about a natural tendency to be able to work with everyone. And it's kind of interesting watching Baha'is come in initially with, what are you? What is this? I remember being in a group and there was a poster behind the door, and it had a list of what all the different religions meant. And next to Baha'i, it said that they contort the Bible to fit their beliefs. And
well, they
so
can
I
take
sat
that view.
with people in the room going, so that's what you think of me? And they go, well, I think you've changed our thinking of that already. And I said, it's time to retire that poster then. But
good.
Texas area, and I think in Dallas too. Sorry, I interrupted.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
You know, Edward, we can listen to you much longer than this, but if there is any question, please go ahead and ask. I would like again to welcome our friends from Malaysia, Mr. Liu Chi, Ms. Pina, Mr. Durai, everybody else. Thank you. We know that it's fasting time and probably the time is not as good as it should be. Jane, do you have another question, please? No, this is okay. Okay. Edward, would you like to summarize or give your last comment, or if there is any question? Usually after the conversation is finished, we start half an hour of devotions, and our friends say prayers in different languages. It's very inspiring. So, Edward, is there anything else you would like to add?
No, I just really appreciate the opportunity to give this presentation. I've discovered that I learn so much when I have to put a presentation together. And my experience in putting this presentation together over the last week or so was that I have an idea over here, and then I have an idea over here, and I have a thought over there. And so it's like little bursts of insight randomly firing off in different directions. And then only gradually it sort of coalesces until I think, okay, now I think I have a coherent understanding. And so it's always been really to my advantage to take the opportunity to give a presentation, because that's when my thinking really coalesces and I finally begin to understand a topic. And so it's very worthwhile to undertake the challenge. And I'm sure there are many people in the audience. I encourage everyone to practice that. It's fun too. And I think as far as interfaith is concerned, I think it's profoundly important to connect it with our behavior. Everything we think about our theology and everything that we think about our patterns of social action are all extremely important. But unless it's coupled with the behavior, it really won't yield much fruit. And it's the behavior that really is, if I may say so, might set us apart from other populations engaging in discourse. And it might enable us to exert a positive influence, encouraging people to move along that continuum I described. And so those are my thoughts for concluding. And of course, I thank everybody for coming and giving me this opportunity to speak.
Thank you so very much, Edward. Gary, you didn't ask any questions this time, but it's okay. You can email it to me and I'll send it to Edward. Dear
You
friend,
know what I found out about Gary?
No, go ahead, Anila.
Gary chants prayers like a heavenly angel. He also chants gospels that you are transported to heaven. He's been holding out on us.
You know, we have two Garys. One is the Gary who was a little late and he just joined us, and I'm so glad because his voice will be better. The other Gary is the Gary who's sitting next to Sylvia, and he would give me feedbacks. Gary and Sylvia, thank you for being here.
Hello,
I love you, Gary's. Gary's our special name.
Friends, for those who joined us for the first time, if you wish your name to be added to our list, please put it on chat. Gary, I have Tara here, who has finished work to be here very quickly. And I would like to ask your permission. So we would ask Tara to start with a prayer. And can you do gospel, music after that? And the friends could just raise their hands. I would like to welcome Mr. Abral from India. Thank you very, very much for joining us. I know it's early morning. Thank you. And Pina, don't forget.
So Ferouz, I'm going to excuse myself, okay? Because I gotta go have some dinner.
I understand.
I haven't had dinner. It's been a fasting day for me. And you brought up the subject of my age earlier.
I did. It was in your
50 years ago, I was 18 years old. I'm 69 years old now. So this actually is my last official fast. And so I'm gonna excuse myself and go get some dinner.
Edward,
We're so grateful to you and the 368 emails it took to get to you. We're just joking. We love you.
I love you and thank you. And it's so good to see so many familiar faces. And
Edward,
I appreciate the time we spent together.
Edward, who taught you the faith before we go?
Oh, I have three spiritual parents. I learned about the faith at the University of Virginia in 1973. My spiritual mother was Mary Gregory. We were both first year students at UVA. And we became study partners, studying for exams together. We kept each other awake for doing our all-nighters to study. And it was months before I even learned that she was a Baha'i. And of course, at that time, I was an atheist. And, but she was, I wish I had time for it now to tell you about her. She was an utterly brilliant Baha'i teacher. Somebody, a bullheaded person like me, desperately needed, because nothing else would have gotten through to my brain. But she was marvelous, a really fantastic teacher. And then I met many people in the Charlottesville Baha'i community, but two individuals, Bob and Dottie Riggs, who were older than us, probably in their 40s at the time. They've both departed now. But Bob and Dottie Riggs really mentored me in the faith. And I wish every Baha'i could have an excellent teacher like they were for me. And so I consider them my spiritual parents as well. For Bob himself was an authentic genius, a brilliant philosopher, scientist, mathematician, physicist, inventor. If I had time to tell you about his achievements in his life, it would blow all of you away. But in the Baha'i world, he's known as the author of the now classic book called The Apocalypse Unsealed. And if anybody who has never read that book, it's definitely something to absorb. Anyway, so Mary was my first one, my teacher, and then Bob and Dottie Riggs, all of them in Charlottesville were my spiritual parents, and they taught me the faith.
Thank you so much, Edward. We offer the first prayer to your teachers.
Oh my goodness. That's fantastic. Okay, I'll stay for the first prayer, then I'm gonna go.
Okay. Okay. Parajan, are you ready?
Allah upon. Afrojan, is that okay if I chant number 33rd, one of the hidden word?
Sure, perfect. Thank you.
به نام گوینده توانا ای برادر من از لسان شکرینم کلمات نازنینم شنو و از لب نمکینم سلسبیل قدس معنوی بیاشا یعنی تخم‌های حکمت لدنیم را در عرض طاهر قلب بیفشان. یعنی تخم‌های حکمت لدنیم را در عرض طاهر قلب بیفشان و به آب یقین آبش ده تا سنبلات علم و حکمت من سرسبز از بلده طیبه انبات نماید.
This is the fasting period, so I'm going to say the fasting prayer and then follow with a short chant. Praise be to thee, O Lord, my God. I beseech thee by this revelation whereby darkness hath been turned into light, through which the frequented fane hath been built and a written tablet revealed, and the outspread roll uncovered, to send down upon me and upon them who are in my company that which will enable us to soar into the heavens of thy transcendent glory, and will wash us from the stain of such doubts as have hindered the suspicious from entering into the tabernacle of thy unity. I am the one, O my Lord, who hath held fast the cord of thy loving kindness, and clung to the hem of thy mercy and favors. Do thou ordain for me and for my loved ones the good of this world and of the world to come. Supply them then with the hidden gift thou didst ordain for the choicest among thy creatures. These are, O my Lord, the days in which thou hast bidden thy servants to observe the fast. Blessed is he that observeth the fast wholly for thy sake and with absolute detachment from all things except thee. Assist me and assist them, O my Lord, to obey thee and to keep thy precepts. Thou verily hast power to do what thou choosest. There is no God but thee, the all-knowing, the all-wise. All praise be to God, the Lord of all worlds. Baha'u'llah. Ya Baha'u'llah. Ya Baha'u'llah. Ya Baha'u'llah. Ya Baha'u'llah. Ya Baha'u'llah. Fill my cup, Lord. I lift it up, Lord. Come and quench this thirsting in my soul. Bread from heaven, feed me till I want no more. Fill my cup, fill it up, and make me whole. Fill my cup, Lord. I lift it up, Lord. Come and quench this thirsting in my soul. Bread from heaven, feed me till I want no more. Fill my cup, fill it up, and make me whole. Ya Baha'ul Abha.
Let us pray. Adakah penghalau sukaran kesukaran selain Tuhan? Katakanlah, terpujilah Tuhan. Ya Tuhan, semua hamba-Nya dan semua tunduk pada perintah-Nya. Adakah berhalau kesukaran selain Tuhan? Katakanlah, terpujilah Tuhan. Ya Tuhan, semua hamba-Nya dan semua tunduk pada perintah-Nya.
Here is a prayer that I just learned that Mona Mahmoudnezad said during her interrogation before she was executed. I just learned it. Oh God, refresh and gladden my spirit. Purify my heart, illumine my powers. I lay all my affairs in thy hand. Thou art my guide and my refuge. I will no longer be sorrowful and grieved. I will be a happy and joyful being. Oh God, I will no longer be full of anxiety, nor will I let trouble harass me. I will not dwell on the unpleasant things of life. Oh God, thou art more friend to me than I am to myself. I dedicate myself to thee, oh Lord. Abdul Baha.
अपने 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 हृदय को पवित्र कर लो ताकि तुम मेरा स्मरण कर सको अपने कानों को शुद्ध कर लो ताकि तुम मेरे शब्दों को सुन सको तब तुम अपना ध्यान उस पवित्र स्थल की ओर लगाओ जहाँ सर्वदयालु तुम्हारे स्वामी का सिंहासन स्थापित किया गया है और कहो हे मेरे स्वामी तेरी जय हो तेरी जय हो तेरी जय हो अल्लाह
This chant, short chant that I will do in our Filipino language is, O God, my beloved, my desire. O Diyos, Diyos ko, aking hero, aking asam. O Diyos, Diyos ko, aking hero, aking asam. O Diyos, Diyos ko, aking hero, ang aking asam.
He is God. O thou, circlest in adoration about the spot round which circle the concourse on high. Raise thou thy hands in gratitude at the threshold of the one true God and say, O thou, the highest aspiration of every ardent lover. O thou, the guide of every wandering soul. Thou hast favored this feeble servant with thine infinite blessings, and led this hapless and lowly one unto the threshold of thy oneness. Thou hast lifted to these parched lips the living waters of thy loving kindness, and revived this weary and withered soul with the breezes of divine mercy. I yield thee thanks for having bestowed upon me a full portion from thy most gracious favor, and invested me with the honor of attaining unto thy sacred threshold. I beseech an infinite share from the bounties of thy kingdom on high. Grant thine assistance, confer thy gracious favor. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Apa, 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 Ya Baha'u'llah.
Sue, where is that from? Where is that prayer from?
That prayer is the first prayer in the newly translated prayers of Abdul Baha. It was released by the House of Justice in March 2021. I'll put the link in the chat.
Please.
Available.
Switch on angelic voices.
Allahu Apa.
Friends, I don't know how to thank you. I just don't know how to thank every single one of you who create such a beautiful space. To me, this is a very beautiful space. Thank you. And Tarajan, now that you came quickly to see us, why don't you offer a prayer for our brothers and sisters in Iran?
Furjan, it doesn't matter how short or
No, not at all. Not at all, please. Thank you for staying with us, friends. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Would you rather I can chant a prayer from Abdul Baha or Shokhi Effendi, which is Rabbana wa Malazana, is Arabic. Which one you would?
Please go ahead and choose it yourself.
ای خداوند بی همتا، ای رب الملکوت، این نفوس سپاه آسمانی توام، امداد فرما و به جنود ملأ اعلی نصرت کن، تا هر یک نظیر اردوی شود و آن ممالک را به محبت الله و نورانیت تعالیم الهی فتح کنم. ای خدا زهیر و نصیر آنها باش و در بیابان و کوه و دره و جنگل ها و دریاها و صحراها مونس آنها باش تا به قوت ملکوتی و نفسات روح القدس فریاد زنم فریاد زنم تویی مقتدر و عزیز و توانا و تویی دانا و شنوا و بینا عبدالبها عباس.
I'd like to offer an end-of-life prayer of Abdu'l-Baha. Many of us are on that threshold, and some are clinging to suffering and misery when just with a little breath of the Holy Spirit, we can depart this world for the greater world. I'd like to say this prayer for those that are longing for that freedom. O my eternal beloved and my adored friend, how long shall I remain bereft of thy presence and sorely afflicted by remoteness from thee? To the retreats of thy heavenly kingdom lead me, and at the scene of the appearance of thy supernal realm, cast upon me the glance of thy loving kindness. O thou omnipotent Lord, number me among the denizens of the kingdom, This mortal world is my abode. Grant me a habitation in the realms of the placeless. To this earthly plane I pertain. Shed upon me the effulgence of thy glorious light. In this world of dust I dwell. Make me an inmate of thy heavenly realm, so that I may lay down my life in thy path and attain to my heart's desire. May crown my head with the diadem of divine favor and raise the triumphant cry of, "Oh, glory of God, the most glorious Yah Baha'u'llah Pa. Yah Baha'u'llah Pa. Yah Baha'u'llah Pa."
Thank you, Sue. As far as I'm concerned, I hope and pray that people who want to leave this world have a better day and stay and work hard, no matter what that is, even if saying a prayer. Abu Baha believed in hope, and we believe in hope. So we pray to God that we all feel better. Oh, Gary, hi, Gary. And so, you're always more than welcome to say prayers in this space. Next time, Sue, chant something else. How about that?
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Friends, I can hardly say goodbye to you. فروزان جان من قربون اون شکلت برم. I have a hard time saying goodbye to you, but I need to copy the chat because of the prayer and everything else. So it will make it easier if you leave and I stay. Gary, next time be on time, okay?
Well, listen, I was on the road. I was listening, but you just couldn't see. I was listening to everybody sending me texts saying I'm not here and I can't drive and text at the same time.
I understand.
It was listed as a Zoomer user.
I totally
Gary,
understand.
she doesn't really understand. She expects miracles.
Mr. Liucci, you were very late today. I know it is the time of fasting and the
okay,
you know.
I haven't even broken my fast yet, just for the record. So
I haven't either, Gary.
So I'm taking in all of the spiritual food. I'm taking in all the spiritual food, so I'm good.
That's right.
Our heads are bowed to you. Josh, what a smile. God bless
thank you. This was absolutely beautiful, guys. Thank you so much.
Yes. This is just beautiful. Gary, go eat. I'm going to come feed you myself.
Josh, do we have your email address?
I did put it in the chat. Yes, ma'am.
Come here.
Okay.
I'll do that.
Okay. Gary, next time don't go out so close to the fireside.
Well, I was on my way back from my hike, my nature walk. I make my prayers in the nature. You know, Baha'u'llah love nature, so I go out there and I make my prayers.
Well, Gary, I don't know. Excuses.
Translated.
Okay.
Loves you too much.
I shall be here. I'll be here. Okay, I'll be here.
Pina John, thank you. Love you all. Pina, thank you for being here. Khadija Khanum, Nesan John, Gibi, bonsoir. Bye, Gary. Bye. Tara John, Qurbanum. Bye. Bye. The recording is going on, for God's sake.